When Akimitsu was 5 years old, his father told him that it was impossible to live alone. He explained that Akimitsu cannot live without friends and would be happy to have as many friends as he could make. His father also told him that he would like to have more women, and he set out on a journey to conquer many women around the world. As a young child, Akimitsu thought his father was cool, but as he grew older, he lost that opinion. The Akami family's reputation had been tarnished by his father's deeds, and everywhere Ikemitsu went, people would disparage his family, and ladies would avoid him. Ikemitsu was determined to put his family's reputation back in order. He concentrated on his studies and avoided women, even when his friends did so during practice. He also declined their invitations to mixers because he wanted to maintain his virginity and succeed in the civil service exam. On the way home, a bale of rice fell on him, and he was furious, but his ire subsided when he realized that the person responsible. When Akimitsu knocked on the door of the Mikizuki temple, no women were permitted inside because he chastised himself for falling in love and decided that this was enough. With the assistance of his uncle, he was introduced to a temple where he might become a Buddhist monk. Yuzuki unlocked the door, shocking Mitsu. Ikemitsu was perplexed as to why this was different from what he thought when Yuzuki asked him about his interests. Ikemitsu thought that it was a test for him. He became flustered when she saw him and went inside to change clothes. Ikemitsu wanted to run away but stumbled upon a stone and hit a tree. Yuzuki was worried about him. Ikemitsu couldn't control himself and directly proposed to marry her. They sat, and when Kiki informed her that Yuzuki's fiancé was seated next to her, Yuzuki became perplexed and believed that Akimitsu was a fake. When her sister Tsukuyo knocked on the door, Yuzuki informed her that a bad spirit had entered the home, inflicting harm on the injured Ikemitsu who had arrived on the scene to beg for assistance. Yuzuki and Tsukuyo were horrified. Ikemitsu encountered Yukuzo's sister Kurig, who passed out when she saw him in the deer. Yuzuko kicked Akimitsu, knocking him out in a different room. When Mia heard commotion outside and opened the door, fake Mitsu grabbed on her and begged for aid. Akimitsu was telling Kagura about the term Yamato Naichiko that was given to gentle ladies who thrived via the profession of voice acting. When Kiki got home and realized what misunderstandings had occurred, she laughed aloud as she revealed that this temple had recently been converted into a nunnery, which was the cause of all the confusion. Mitsu approached the terrified Yakuzo once more, and the terrified Yakuzo simply knocked him down out of fear. Kiki proposed they let Akimitsu remain with them while he pursues his dream of becoming a monk. Mitsu declined her goodwill and bade them farewell. Yuzuki was informed by Heritage that she believed Ikemitsu wasn't an evil guy. Yuzuki agreed with her pigments, who arrived at the bus stop and discovered that all the buses had stopped and he couldn't go back home for the time being. When Yuzuki got there, she was aware that the bus had stopped, so she offered him to stay in the temple themselves to each other. Yuzuki was surprised when she heard Akimitsu's surname make Mitsu's father had borrowed money from the temple and vanished ever since everyone talked about how to make Akimitsu pay back. Everyone was humiliated by Yuzuki's arts forgery, so she rectified herself and declared that Akimitsu would compensate them by working in the temple. The girls were planning a strategy to expel Mitsu from the temple when he began ministering there the following day. They planned that Tsukuya would use her body to titillate Mitsu before playing the victim card to expel him. Yuzuki had just gotten up to ring the morning bell when Mitsu met her, while completing all of the chores and preparing breakfast. As Mitsu's worldly desires began to take hold, Tsukuya decided to make fun of his cooking, even though she enjoyed it, in an effort to humiliate him. Tsukuyo gave him a summer uniform in the name of work clothes for temple monks. Peak Mitsu was delighted to wear those clothes and quickly finished all the tasks in the temples. She assigned him to handle administrative classes, but Akimitsu already had done so. Tsukuyo was enraged by how good he was, so she made him complete waterfall meditation training. Despite the training, he persevered, and Yuzuki arrived on the scene. Once he saw her, he gave her that look as if he can make her waterfall just as much. A few scenes later, we see he is in getting out of the bath, and Tsukuyo began removing her dress, while Mitsu tried to calmly determine what was going on. Because of her anxiety, Tsukuyo knocked the closet from behind, and a false box came down, making her feel foolish for not taking her clothing off gently. Due to another box, Mitsu accidentally kissed her after saving her. Tsukuyo seen what happened and didn't feel good, even though Ikemitsu was kicked out when she met Yuzuki, who tried to avoid her. She learned that Yuzuki was really embarrassed about seeing Akimitsu this way, because Yuzuki already knew about their plan to kick him out. When Yuzuki entered the aram and saw the scene, she ordered Akimitsu to leave. Akimitsu turned himself in to the police and confessed to his crime of kissing a girl, and the police kindly told him to leave. When asked why she allowed Akimitsu in the temple, Yuzuki responded that their mother would have done the same, because Akimitsu looked frustrated, and frustrated people are terrible people. Tsukuyo then changed her mind about Akimitsu. Akimitsu sat beneath a bridge and hoped that Yuzuki and the other girls were living their best lives. He began thinking about motorboating those big melons, but tried to stop himself from acting on them. When he went back to his former room, he saw that it had been given to another renter, and his own belongings had been thrown out. Back again under the bridge, dirty thinking Yuzuki came up to him and reprimanded him for leaving the temple. She advised him to depend more on others because he was still a child. Ikemitsu revealed that he was 21 years old. Yuzuki also claimed that she was 17 years old. Tsukuyo also apologized to him. They returned inside. Akimitsu, who prepared dinner, helped him. She told him that Yuzuki was stupid and useless. Yuzuki and Tsukuyo attempted to dissuade Mia from engaging in the battle, but she was certain that she would fight Ikemitsu and that the consequence would be for him to be castrated. Mia was very upset about Ikemitsu staying in the temple. temple. Hikomitsu was happy to accept her combat with Yuzuki. He was dispatched to the duel site by Tsukuyo and Keurig. Hikomitsu approached Mia, and both introduced themselves. Kaguro, who was Mia's attendant, identified herself as Mia's big sister. Hikomitsu, who was not the Anakimitsu, took a stance with a sword in their hands. Mia explained that this game was called the Hyakunin issue, and that it was based on the story of a samurai who killed one person to save 100 others. Mia attacked and almost cut off his head. When Akimitsu saw that she was serious, he employed his special bare-handed sword-stopping technique since he didn't want to injure her. When one of the bandages covering Mia's chest came undone, a catastrophe ensued. When Mia was defeated, Akimitsu had to decide what her punishment would be in order to assist him. Akimitsu interrupted them and said, "I want something else," pointing at the book of penalties. But Mia mistook it for a pointer at her. Huge you-know-what. So she was unwilling and fled in shame. Kagura then suggested one of the worst penalties to Mia, and Mia agreed to endure it. Akimitsu was disappointed that he was unable to obtain the book since he believed it to hold a path to change things. Kaguru was filming from the sidelines when Mia woke up and informed him that she was prepared for the penalty. When Mitsu realized what was going on, the misunderstanding was resolved. Leah fled after feeling degraded. Kagura made a suggestion to awaken Mitsu. Thea entered the storage building to meditate, where she discovered Akimitsu waiting for her in the manner of the Kagura. Kagura had already shut the door from the outside when Mia attempted to escape. Akimitsu found a blanket that Mia didn't want to touch because she didn't want anything touched by a boy. Leah sneezed, so Akimitsu insisted on giving it to her. Mia pushed him away and began to cry. Akimitsu put a blanket on her when she calmed down. Akimitsu asked her why she acted out of pocket in his room earlier. Mia revealed that it was because she hasn't gotten any good D in years. As a young child, Mia thought it was great when her only buddy Kagari offered that they enroll in the temple and become Buddhist monks. It was too late when she learned that her strange behavior had caused the other students to avoid her. Yuzuki and Akimitsu hurried to the bus stop after Kiki reminded them of their matchmaking meeting. This marriage was necessary to keep the temple from closing down because the temple lacked a head priest, and Kiki could only remain as a priest. Akimitsu also shared his own story, and they both discovered that they were similar and became close friends. Bashed in and told them that the penalty would be continued for the entire night, they practiced spots all night long. Yuzuki was determined to keep the shrine open despite the fact that the bus had already left at 8. Mitsu rented a scooter from a stranger. He was a delivery worker, so he was familiar with all the shortcuts. The scooter ran out of gas. They find a truck to borrow. They decided to break the truck's door, after which they borrowed the vehicle from the driver. Kiki had previously informed Yuzuki that the temple would be closing in a year and that it would take him 3 years to become the head priest. Mitsu had also promised to assist Yuzuki in making it to the meeting at the temple on time and had experience changing kimonos from one of his jobs. Yuzuki intended to work with a matchmaker. As soon as they arrived at the Rikoku temple, Igmitsu bumped the truck against a tree. Yuzuki went inside to attend the matchmaking meeting. Mitsu wished her luck, and then a nun discovered Mitsu and assumed he was a monk. She took him inside to clean the temple. Yuzuki greeted a man named Kijo Hun, who she would meet for matchmaking. Yuzuki explained to him that she viewed the temple's patrons as her family and that she was there for them. She also noticed Akimitsu cleaning the yard, and both of them were shocked when they saw each other. Hon encouraged her to calm down, and the nun summoned Akimitsu over to play the phony matchmaker between Yuzuki and Honorable Mitsu, began posing some inquiries at home. Yuzuki remembered that her mother had told her to never lie, and she remembered that she and Kiki had made a plan to use Hon to keep the temple open, and then break off the engagement when Yuzuki has become a head priest. Yuzuki confessed her plan to Hon and apologized to him, and she asked him to engage her Hon. Eventually, Akimitsu felt his heart bleeding from the answers, and he eventually fainted. Hanhi was repeatedly questioned by Hon about his willingness to support and ensure Yuzuki's happiness throughout her life. Hon agreed to the engagement, but only in name. When the nun who brought Akaimsu inside asked Hon why he didn't decline because she was the high priest of this temple, and Hon called her high priest, Hon said he couldn't help himself because Akaimsu was so fascinating. High priest Dayaba, who knew Hon's father Yuzu, recognized the Kaimtu as an Akagami, kinds who walked to the train station, and found that they had missed the train. They wanted somewhere to sleep for a night, and saw a love hotel Yuzuki. Thinking to spending the night there, the kinds who unwillingly checked in, he was getting overwhelmed with worldly desires, so he handcuffed himself with the handcuffs in the room. Yuzuki put a blindfold on him and quietly slept in a comfortable bed, ignoring his calls for help. Thank you for watching till end. If you are a real one and made it this far, comment "it should have been me" in the comments.